Welcome to Lunchtime Politics. First, the highlights. Senate shifts valedictory session to Saturday, June the 13th. Nasarawa State Governor in favour of fuel subsidy, however, blames mismanagement of funds on refinery operations. Plus, People's Democratic Party kicks as All Progressives Congress administration of Governor Hyacinth Alia sacks some civil servants. Welcome to the program. I'm Melissa Ntomoka in Lagos, and we begin in Nasarawa State, where the controversy continues as one of the factional speakers of the State House of Assembly, Ibrahim Balarabe, held plenary session at the Assembly complex this morning. During the plenary, the only female lawmaker of the state's 7th Assembly, Hajira Danyaro, was sworn in. Other principal officers of the Balarabe camp were also announced as House leaders. Adamu Omadefu announced Majority Leader Dan Ladi Jatau, the Deputy Majority Leader Larry Van Bauer as Chief Whip, Suleiman Azara, Deputy Chief Whip Ibrahim Musa of the NNPP, Minority Leader Musa Saidu of the SDP, Deputy Minority Leader, and Solomon Akwashiki of the SDP as the Minority Chief Whip. The members approved the request of Governor Abdullahi Sule to appoint 20 special advisors, also following the approval of the Governor for the renovation of the Assembly complex. Ibrahim Balarabe announced a break of legislative duties to resume July the 10th. This, he noted, is to enable the renovation work commence. There's still heavy presence of security at the Assembly entrance with strict restrictions. And what was meant to be a day to say goodbye for members of the 9th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but the D-Day has now been postponed. The President of Senate, Ahmed Lawan, announced that the Senate rescheduled its valedictory session to Saturday, June the 10th. Senator Lawan had on Tuesday announced that the upper chamber would hold its valedictory session today. In a press statement, Ms. Lawan says the shift in date is because of a scheduled meeting of President Bola Tinubu with lawmakers of the incoming 10th National Assembly that's taken place today. He says a session as significant and historical as a valedictory session of the Senate requires a whole day, not just a few hours. Therefore, it has been postponed to Saturday, June the 10th. The President of Senate has also hinted that the 10th Senate will be inaugurated Tuesday, June the 13th, 2023. The 9th Senate officially ends its 4-year tenure on June the 11th, 2023. In the meantime, ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly next week, the Confederation of APC support groups, they're demanding for the zoning of the position of Senate presidency to the Northwest zone in the interest of equity and reward for hard work. National coordinator of the APC support group, Mohammed Kailani, at a news conference in Kaduna, said that religion or ethnicity cannot be a yardstick or qualification for the 10th Senate presidency seat. Rather, capacity and contribution in the last election should be priority. Against the background, the group is supporting former governor of Zamfara State, Abdulaziz Yari, saying he's the best candidate for the 10th Senate presidency.
We know our candidate. He has the capability, he has the quality, he has the wherewithal, he has the competence. Moreover, we cannot be watching when the South has the president, they have the judiciary. The remaining arm of the government is the National Assembly. And we cannot overlook that very seat is coming to the Northwest, God's willing. I dare say that Yari has spent hundreds of millions to support party's activities, the party activities, and remains a one-man squad against hunger and poverty in Zamfara State, even after his exit as a governor of the state. So, and that is why he won the senatorial election fair and square. I doubt if there is a strong basis of comparison between Yari and the door of Akpabio and others.
And a former Deputy Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Edison Ehie, has emerged the majority leader of the House. Honourable Ehie, who is from Ahoda East Constituency 1, was elected unopposed at plenary. Also elected are Honourable Linda Stewart, representing Okrika constituency, as Deputy Leader. Honourable Major Jack for Akuku Toro Constituency 1 as Chief Whip. Ofix Kabang, representing Andoni State Constituency, as Deputy Chief Whip. The House had on Monday, June the 5th, elected Honourable Martin Amewole as Speaker and Right Honourable Dumu Mao as Deputy Speaker. Speaking to the press, the new Speaker promised that the 10th Assembly would hit the ground running and learn from their past experiences.
I rise to...
In my acceptance speech, I said that the legislative agenda for the 10th Assembly will be rolled out. So you cannot roll out an agenda alone as an individual. We have just been sworn in as officers, and of course we took our oath of office as members. We are going to work together as an assembly. 32 of us will sit down and discuss where are we going, how do we get there, and it will be something that will be a consensus arrangement, so that when we roll it out, people will know that it's not a one-man thing, and we will follow it and ensure that it's to the benefit of the people of Rivers State.
We head to Benue now, where the People's Democratic Party is cautioning the All Progressives Congress administration of Governor Hyacinth Alia against the consequences of the arbitrary sacking of civil servants duly employed since May 2022 and what they call alleged political vengeance going on in the state. The acting state chairman of the party, Mr. Isaac Mfo, at a press conference in Makurdi, described the sacking of the workers as illegal and against labor laws of the state, calling on the governor to reverse his decision. Governor Alia had earlier in a press statement through his chief press secretary described the employment as a political tool to choke his administration, especially when the former governor, Mr. Samuel Otom, was unable to pay their monthly salaries while in office.
PDP observed sadly that by this latest sack, Governor Alia has continued on the wrong footing of his administration so far by executing worthy actions without following due process of consultations and interactive engagements needed to input into those actions necessary public content and connect as should obtain in a participatory democracy such as ours.
Well, Pius Angbo is our correspondent in Makurdi, and he's with me now. Hi, Pius. So first, the press secretary, Mr. Tesu Kula, he described the employment as a political tool to choke this administration, but how did they arrive at that?
Thank you. Welcome to Makurdi this morning for Sunrise and Lunchtime Politics, as it were. The administration of Governor Hyacinth Alia has come in and is inherited liabilities in terms of outstanding salaries, monthly salaries, pensions, and arrears. And also, he is looking also at the additional wage burden that the employment of new teachers for primary schools, teachers from the State Teaching Service Board, secondary school, and then other cadres of employment at the civil service would add to the existing burden on the ground without commensurate funding to deal with that. So his first thought was to put those employment aside, beginning from May 2022 to date. His argument is that if the governor is able, or was able, the former governor, Governor Samuel Otom, was able to pay those employees before he left office, he will sustain the payment of those salaries. But where the governor did not meet their payment, there is just the way he would come in and add to the existing wage problem. And so the Governor Samuel Otom's last salary payment before exiting office was November 2022. So from December to date, they have not received salaries in civil service. And so he is looking at that, okay, it's another burden I'm going to inherit if you have not paid from December to date, December 2022 to date. you are putting people in the payroll that you're employing up till May or April this year, then there is a problem. But what the PDP is looking at is there is a legitimate recruitment process sanctioned by the State Executive Council under Governor Samuel Otom. And if you were to set aside anything, there should be consultation with stakeholders, with labor union, with the civil servant, with the civil service, and know whether or not the merit or demerit for this recruitment. And that is where the argument of the PDP is. And they're asking him to reverse or rescind his decision for the interest of the people because there is hardship in the land. That's the statement according to the chairman of the PDP.
And Pius, that's almost 7 months without salary. Do we know how many civil servants are affected and how they feel about this decision by this new administration?
Well, at the moment, on the street, you hear about 25,000 persons were employed within the period into the civil service. Okay, that's what you hear on the streets. Most times when you ask public servants to give you these figures, they will tell you, well, this number is in this place, we have not collated, but it is actually in that number that is causing this problem. Doctors employed under the State Hospital Management Board are also affected because a time came where you had no doctor in any PAC in the state. There were not enough doctors at the state teaching hospital here, no doctors at general hospital. So the government took a decision to employ more doctors. This category of employees are also caught up in this mess. And so that's the point where they're asking, can you have a conversation before you disengage these people? The feeling about among the people who have been affected is that of disappointment because some would tell you that after a long time of no employment in the state, we finally got employment, now we're laid off because there's a new administration. Couldn't something better be done about how we can go about this? If we merited this employment, to keep it. If we didn't, then we'll talk about how we got here. Those are the conversations going on amongst the people who are affected by the decision of government. Of course, the PDP has stayed on this side, but there are also those who have read from their social media account who says they don't care that the Reverend Father has terminated their employment, that if they were to conduct the election again, they will still support Reverend Father for taking decisions such as that. So it's a mixed reaction. It's not an all against the government because you have people who say it's the right course to take, even though they are affected by this decision.
Finally, before I let you go, Pius, I mean, Benue State has been in the news previously, not for the best of reasons. When you look at the issue of farmer herder crisis and the politics, is it too soon to say that, perhaps it's going to be a heated political climate ahead of this new administration?
I tell you the truth, Millicent, Benue political class need healing from their disagreements from every electoral cycle. In 2015, we had this same experience when the Governor Tom administration came in through the APC in 2015, defeating the PDP then. He sacked employees who were 2 years into the service under the Shopee program. He also sacked employees at the local government under the state screening program to determine the actual wage bill, and they say they categorize those people as ghost workers. But over time, in 2021, he reinstated those local government staff that were sacked. Now, it looks like each time a political party different from the ruling party takes power is a vendetta kind of approach to government. That happened in 2015 and is happening now. So they need to talk to themselves. Whatever we're doing, is it affecting the people of Benue negatively or positively? Could it be handled such that we don't have the repercussion on our people and our economy and our state? Because the problem has always been that one party seizes or wins the election from the ruling party, and then it's like we want to phase out everybody, including those who are on statutory appointments that goes through tenured appointment. These things are affecting the system. Because when you cut an administration short, before you bring in somebody who may or not know what they are coming to do, the impact is on the economy and the state, and it affects everything that goes on. So many politicians need to sit down and think about our outcomes, how we deal with ourselves from both political divides.
Indeed, Pius. We hope they're listening as we continue to monitor the temperature. We'd like to thank you, our correspondent there for us in Makurdi, Pius Angbo. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We'll move over to Cross River State, where the governor, Senator Basietu, has assured women in the state that he will not only ensure fairness and equity in his appointments, but strive to ensure that women and children take vintage positions during the lifespan of his administration. He disclosed this at the Governor's Lodge in Calabar, the state capital.
Don't despair. They talk about 50%. We don't know what it will be. But I can assure you it might be more than that. Men, don't worry. You know, there come a time in the generation where the majority must always show or carry the day. I believe that this particular movement, women have shown their strength. And in order to recognize them, in order to strengthen and encourage them, we must recognize this level of hard work which they are putting. But men, be reassured that there will be more than enough for everybody. And what we are going to do to women and children, people will be surprised. People are talking about employment, they are talking about appointment. There's going to be something, some other very magical thing that's going to happen. I'm not going to unveil it now, but seeing, you'll be convinced that this government is very serious.
We go over to talking aviation. Former Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, NAMA, Captain Roland Yayi, he slammed the action of the former Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, saying his claims about the potential of the Nigeria Air are false. Captain Yayi was a guest on our breakfast program.
The issue of setting up a national carrier at some point maybe was in 2016, but the same government of former President Buhari stopped the process. And it took the president coming back sometime around 2018 to say, okay, let's look at it again. And then we had an unveiling at Farnborough. And then, of course, we came back again, there was a suspension of the process. So the issue had been that certain elements of what had been presented to the government were not tying up. They were not adding up. So there had been stops and starts. In terms of engagement with the industry, the former minister hardly engaged on this particular issue with the industry. Given where we are now with what we know, it is very clear that everything the former minister had said was that Nigeria Air would represent and help stem everything that he said, that would happen, and it will never happen. Airplanes operated by Ethiopia, not owned by Nigeria Air, wet leased to Nigeria Air, paid for by equity contributed by the Nigerian partners, then obviously we're still going to end up with the same thing, capital flight. You're not going to be employing Nigerians any soon because the aircraft will be registered in Ethiopia, except, of course, we have some sort of endorsement for their licenses to be able to fly those airplanes. So a lot of issues that he had raised, that, these are the advantages of this particular transaction and this is where it's going to take us as a country, all those things are false.
So much to do about Nigeria Air. Joining me now, Mr. Bernard Bankole, an aviation expert, to talk more about this. Welcome to the program. So, Chairman of the House Committee on Aviation declared the launch of Nigeria Air as a fraud. The Ministry of Aviation claims Nigeria Air was only unveiled and not necessarily launched. What do you think happened?
Well, with the benefit of hindsight, we can make all sorts and manner of assumptions that fraud is this, is that. But there's need for us to look at it critically, especially among the aviators, to look what actually transpired. It is the desire of the minister to ensure that this dream of having a national carrier comes to reality, which is a positive thing to do. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Having an ambassador that will reposition the image of the country is not a bad idea. I have always advocated for a national carrier. Well, under this circumstance, the issue that is being raised about fraud or no fraud is the fact that an Ethiopia airline aircraft was brought in to deceive us. How was that a deceit? So we need to look at it critically. And the first thing we talk about is this. What actually transpired? Was the aircraft brought in to unveil the name and what the national carrier would look like to us, or it was presented to us as an aircraft purchased outrightly or leased to be able to achieve that aim. So we need more clarity rather than everybody jumping into assumption of what it is or what is not and all that. I think we need to sit down and really understand what this is all about before we start to castigate. Everything different quarters have said about this has not been too clear to me personally. The other time that the logo was unraveled, the logo was launched, there was similar talk about the logo being launched with 50 million naira and what have you, blah, blah, blah. And the minister came out to debunk the story at one of the stakeholders' meetings. So I think there is need for us to give a fair hearing when it comes to issues like this. That is my honest position.
And when you say fair hearing, because you talked about how this is a positive intention for Nigeria to have, a carrier, whose responsibility should it be? This administration, should the Minister of Aviation be invited? Should he be questioned? Should there be an investigation into how much was spent, what was spent? Because this is a controversy that's been generating loads of reactions, including online, where a number of people are saying that money continues to disappear from the country and through corrupt politicians.
But again, that's still an assumption. Money disappeared. How did the money disappear? Can we get the Ministry of Aviation to come and defend how much has actually been disbursed to this particular project? I think it will make a whole lot of sense. Rather than you and I sit down here and castigate that someone has stolen. Yes, the aircraft was unveiled to us for us to see what Nigeria Air will be like when it starts operation. But the question is, how much has been disbursed? Who is responsible for this information? If an investigation needs to be launched into it, so be it. So that before we start to castigate, we all have a clear position of what has transpired. Intention might be right. In carrying out the task might be wrong, but it is not sufficient for us to sit down and castigate. I believe that a proper inquiry into this matter will go a long way in getting the public to understand what really happened, rather than us speculating or creating unnecessary allegation that this is what has happened. I've seen different stories, left, right, and center, about what happened to Nigeria Air. How much has been disbursed? Who disbursed it?
I guess why also we wait,
please.
For these decisions and to be answered and decisions to be made, questions to be asked and answered. Do you think that the time is now for Nigeria to have a carrier?
Oh, certainly. We definitely need a national carrier. I have said it times without number. We need a national carrier. One of the critical things that a national carrier will do, it will help to regulate the cost of airfare. It's very, very necessary. That's number one. It gives Nigeria better presence in other countries outside the world as an ambassador. And it helps to promote our culture, our domestic tourism outside the shore of the country. When you look at the benefits that this singular act will bring forth to you and I mean, it is immeasurable. You can count the number of countries that have developed their countries based on the fact that they had a national carrier and they were able to promote tourism there. Dubai is one of it. Rwanda is one of it. So many. Do you want me to list them out? So without having a national carrier, it makes it difficult. Now, you can say to me that we have a flag carrier. A flag carrier is never the same as a national carrier. A flag carrier is one of your airlines that is promoting that route. They are not going to promote tourism. They won't, because that is not their responsibility. It becomes the responsibility of the government and the national carrier to be able to promote domestic tourism, which will generate good GDP for us. And please don't come and say to me that we have security issues, because the security issue is everywhere around the world. America has gun issues every day, and people are still flying there by the day. So I think it's high time we come to terms with reality and really face what's on ground. That's my take. There's absolutely nothing wrong in setting up an inquiry to look into the issue that must have happened. How did we get to where we are in terms of Air Nigeria? Was there a disbursement? If there was a disbursement, how much was disbursed? How did they go about? And all that. Because
I'd like to thank you.
An AOC,
Thanks a lot, Mr. Bernard. I think that's the fine place to leave it as we continue to monitor that sector and see what this administration does to the questions that a number of us are raising. Thanks a lot, aviation expert Bernard Bankole. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
We go to another issue, and that is of oil fuel subsidy. The governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, he believes that the fuel subsidy regime has been a fraud that should have been long stopped by successive administrations. He expressed worry on the huge sums of money spent under the last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari in the repairs of the 4 refineries that still never worked. According to him, over $19 billion was spent in the last 8 years to repair the refineries, and that less than that amount was used by Alhaji Aliko Dangote in building his refinery. That's almost 2 times the size of all of Nigeria's 4 refineries put together. He was a guest on our breakfast show, Sunrise Daily.
I have always supported removal of subsidy as a professional, as my background, because I knew there was too much fraud in it. Because the only reason why we are paying subsidy is because we are not refining. Okay? So if we had taken care of our refineries very well, there wouldn't have been this. In the year 2002 or so, we gave 18 licenses, DPR. I was there in Lagos. You know, on the phone we gave 18 licenses for private refineries. Not one of them was built. So a lot of things have happened. Government tried this, it didn't work. Tried this, it didn't work. All thinking that if we had done that, all this problem of subsidy will have been over. Look at how much the President Buhari administration spent, you know, on fixing of the refineries. In the 8 years, he spent more money than the 19 billion that Dangote spent in building a refinery that is 1.5 times the size of all our 3 refineries combined. Our 3 refineries in Nigeria today have a total of 450,000 barrels per day. Dangote is 650,000. He spent $19 billion in building it. We spent in maintaining, not building a new one, maintaining these new refineries more than 19 billion in the 8 years. Yet they have not been maintained.
So is it that government is helpless? They can't arrest them or let them face the music?
No.
Defaulters?
Okay, let me tell you one of the problems we face at the refineries. The refinery is actually components. Component for water, component for crude, component for this. So you have about 5 or 6 different components that constitute a refinery. The moment the government says we are going to spend $2 billion this year on a refinery. So what the government does, the $2 billion are spent. So as far as president is concerned, we have given the $2 billion. Now, when it goes to the 4 refineries, or the 3 refineries, three effective refineries that we have in Port Harcourt, Wari, and Kaduna, then they say, okay, you now take 700 million, you now take 800 million, you now take that. By the time they take that, it goes to fix maybe, you know, only 1 component out of the 4 components that are all bad.
Well, that's our show this hour. You've been served lunch. Thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker.